Big breaking news today. Jose Mourinho, Dan, has been sacked again. I don't think the only time he's ever not, when's the only time he's never, well, Porto didn't sack him, Inter didn't sack him, but every other job he's been sacked from. 2 European finals, 2 years running, but currently sitting 9th in the league. Roma are struggling. They've parted company. Is that it for Jose Mourinho now as an elite level manager? Is this the last we're going to see of him at a big club, in your opinion?
Potentially, but let's be real. He's still won trophies everywhere he's been other than Spurs, but no one wins there. Let's be real. Like, that's just a lurgy club, right? So when you look at the other clubs he's been to, he's won something everywhere. And I don't like Jose Mourinho, and I wouldn't want him at Arsenal because he's just not a manager that I like, or somebody, he's not really a footballing man that I like, right? But when I look at it, fair play to his career, winning CV, everywhere he's gone, he's done something. He's even won a Conference League, I think, at Roma, didn't he? So he actually won him a trophy. And I don't know when the last time it was they won a trophy. So he's come in and done the job for him. He obviously does fall out with people. He's not a longevity manager, is he? He never has been. I've never seen Jose Mourinho at a club that says, right, for the next 7 years, you're going to be our manager and I want you to take us from this point to that point. He comes in for 18 months, 2 years, and he'll win you something. In the last time that Ferguson has been at Manchester United, who was your better manager? Well, it was Mourinho. He's got you a Europa League, got you a League Cup. And yeah, he told you some home truths and people didn't like it and he went. And to be fair, everything he said about the club, in my opinion, was correct. And they thought he was toxic. I think the fan base were actually a little bit too silly, really, because actually what he was trying to say was kind of right. But listen, he's a winner, serial winner, and I'm sure he will get another job. Whether it will be an elite club, I'm not so sure. I think people are going a different route down for some reason in managers. A lot of people want processes and young managers and ones that are going to be there and take the club from here to there. I'm not so sure that always works, as we're finding out at Arsenal and Chelsea. It's not guaranteed to work. But what I will say is that Mourinho will get another job and he will do well.
Can I bring you up on something on that, though, Dan? Something I don't understand, right? So say you don't win say you get top four this year, but you don't win the Premier League, right? You'd be Arteta out, right? I imagine. Yeah. Would you not just take Mourinho for a year or two just to see if he could win you the league, win you the Champions League, and then if it doesn't work, go back to a process, get a new process manager like a De Zerbi? Why don't you want him? I don't get that.
I don't want him just from a personal thing. I think he's good. I've always thought he was good. I would go down the route of a Carlo Ancelotti or maybe a Hansi Flick or maybe Diego Simeone ahead of Jose Mourinho, because I feel like they are still at the kind of level that I would expect Arsenal to want to be challenging for. And I think that maybe Mourinho has struggled to go to that elite club in the last probably, 6-7 years and win them at the very top level. He couldn't get Roma to the top level of Serie A. He couldn't get Tottenham anywhere, let's be real. And at Manchester United, he still couldn't get them across the line at a Champions League or a Premier League, which is ultimately what I want, right? But when I look at what he's done and what he's achieved, his CV leaves a lot of managers in the bin. And the problem I've got, LB, and this is similarly to Manchester United, is if Manchester United or Arsenal was to go, let's say Arteta and Ten Hag both lose their jobs at the end of the season, if we go and get a Xabi Alonso and give him 200 million and give him another 5 years, aren't we just doing what we did with Arteta and Ten Hag? Mm-hmm. Why don't we just actually go and get someone to win now?
But that's what I'm saying. But say like Simeone.
I've answered that by saying I wouldn't want Jose Mourinho, but he's the type of manager that I think we should be looking to go for in terms of someone who's got a CV that can win now. That's where I'm at.
I don't think Jose is a winner at the elite end of the spectrum anymore. So I don't know if he's capable of winning Premier Leagues and Champions Leagues with the very best teams. He'll still win trophies at a lot of clubs. I still think he could go to an Arsenal. I still think he could come back to Man United and win us a League Cup, maybe an FA Cup, maybe Europa League. But I don't know if I'm not even sure if it's good enough. That may be a bit of an oversimplification. I think he struggled to adapt to how the demands of football have changed in terms of what people want, how players react to certain treatment and the way you talk publicly about players and maybe your behavior. It's one of the great things about Sir Alex. That started managing in the 70s. Imagine how people were then compared to the sort of pampering that people needed by 2013. To be able to manage through those exceedingly different eras from a personnel point of view is a real difficult thing. And I don't think Jose's adapted how Pep has as an example. So I don't necessarily think he's right for an Arsenal or, the Bayern Munich job or anything of those levels. And I think you can see it the same pattern is still there, though. He's won Roma, something like trophies. And trophies are important. But so is how good you are in your league. And you've got to weigh those two things up. If someone said to me now, like, if I had two choices, you can win a domestic trophy every year, but never compete for the league title, or I can't guarantee you trophies, but you'll be in and around the title race every year. I'm picking the second option without a guarantee of trophies. Because and the thing with Jose is that's what I look at him like as a manager now. I think whoever he takes over, he could win you some domestic trophies, but I don't think he's good enough to win you the league
say
titles.
That again, Tel. You do what? You take every single season, not winning anything, but at least being around it.
Didn't say that.
A domestic cup every year.
So this is the options, right?
All right, I've got to listen to this again.
Yeah, you got to listen to it again. So you win a domestic trophy every year, but you're guaranteed to never win the Premier League or Champions League. Or you can compete for that. You don't know if you're going to win a trophy or not. You may win one. You don't know. No guarantee. But you're in and around the title race every year. I'm choosing being in and around the title race because if you're in the title race every year, you know you're a brilliant team and you're probably going to win trophies. When I look at Jose, all I've seen him do in the last decade, he can win you some cups, but he is not good enough to win league titles anymore. So that's why I think he's done at the elite end of the spectrum. He can't get his teams into title races or sustain it. And at the end of the day,
what I was basically saying to LB that was why I would not go for Jose as my number one option, because he hasn't proved to me in the last 5 years that he can win at the elite level. And that's what I'm after, is a manager who can. And Carlo Ancelotti has, and obviously Diego Simeone. Of the last 3-4 years, maybe you'd look at him and go, is he kind of done all he can at Atletico Madrid? Does he need a new challenge? Would that give him that fire in his belly like he's had at Atletico Madrid? Possibly not. People might think he's the absolute worst choice. But I ask LB a question. If Arsenal appointed Jose Mourinho, would you be more worried of us than us now if we kept Arteta next year?
I'd be more worried if you had Mourinho than Arteta.
That's an interesting point, see?
I don't believe you, LB. I don't believe you. What do
you mean? No, this is elite level manager.
When was the last time he competed for an elite Premier League title, a major title, and got a team? When did win it with Chelsea? Was it 2015?
2015, United, he finished second.
Yeah, but 20 points behind you. We were nowhere near you.
No, but you still finished second. And you won the Europa League.
We weren't in the title race.
What else did you win?
In the title race.
You won the League Cup. You won the treble.
You won the League Cup and the Europa League. He can win trophies, but it's been 9 years since he got a team into a title race.
Yeah, but you've also got to look at the teams that he's been at. That United team finished second. He said that was the best achievement of his football career. Was that team really ready to win the league? No. Tottenham's team probably wasn't ready to win the league. He got them to a cup final, then they sacked him. He could have been a manager that won the first trophy since 2008, and then they sacked him. And he's gone to Roma. I don't really know much about Roma. Did they have a team that could really compete? He won them a European trophy. First trophy they've won in decades, I think.
I understand that. And that element of his game is still good. But for me, when you have a player that certain people rate higher than his ability, Wilfried Zaha, I look at as an example, very technically gifted. But some people for the past 4 or 5 years spoke about him as though he could be a world-class star. When he leaves Palace, who he joins is a sign of how good he really is. He's a good player. But he was never this elite individual that a lot of people made him out to be. That's why he went from Palace to Galatasaray, and no big club has taken a punt. Since Man United, no big teams have even come in and knocked on the door for Jose Mourinho. And I think that speaks volumes. Now, I'm not suggesting that Arsenal shouldn't move on from Arteta if he fails this year, but it should be for a manager who is currently very competitive, if not winning league titles, because I always feel like if you're not competing for your league title, even if you're picking up domestic trophies in and around it, you're not there. You're not at the elite end of the spectrum. You've got to, the best teams in the world all compete for their league title on a regular basis. So unless you can get a team to that level, and I don't think Jose can anymore. I think he needs to be put out to stud. International football for him, something along those lines. I just think he's done at the elite end of club football. And I think if he goes to Arsenal, if he went to Arsenal, this is what will happen. Year 1, he might win a League Cup, might win the FA Cup.
He might win the league,
though. He wouldn't. Do okay in the league. By the end of his second or third season, they'd be sitting mid-table and it'd be carnage in the dressing room. It'll have upset loads of players. It'll be toxic there within a year and a half to 2 years.
Yeah, I think
it will start well and it'll go backwards. And why do I think that? Because that is what he's done for the last 13 years of his career. Started well and it's ended up exceedingly toxic.
I don't disagree with that point, but I think you're wrong there when you said he wouldn't have them challenging for the league. They would have a better chance of winning the league next year with Mourinho than Arteta. Arteta's done a good job to build the squad to get it to this point, but I don't think he's got the ability to take them to the next level and actually win it. If you brought in Mourinho next season, and you're clear this is only a short-term process, you'd have a good chance of winning either the Champions League or the Premier League with him as your manager, because he's done it before. Arteta's not. I feel like process managers are all good, but when you get to the end of the process, if they've not won you anything, but you've still got a squad that's capable of eventually winning something, take the gamble.
I don't disagree with that point. I just disagree on Jose being the individual that comes in. So if you turn around and said, bring in Carlo Ancelotti, who I don't look at as a process-style manager, man's still at the peak of his powers. Diego Simeone can be a project manager, but we can see with what he's done. But I think that would make sense. I genuinely believe Jose's done at the elite end of the spectrum. I don't think he's good enough anymore to win the league title. He may win you a trophy or two domestically, which for some gooners, they may go, we'll take that for a year or two. And that's fair enough. But I'm just going on the man's history that it's going to end badly. And as much as it's good to win trophies, you also partly judge a manager on how they leave you and what it's like when they're exiting. You have to, and Jose generally in the last 13 years has left teams and clubs in a worse situation than when he's entered. And irrespective of what he's won in that process, leaving the way he does is not a good sign for a team that's trying to progress and get back to the top, because they may win the FA Cup year one, but if by the end of year two they're sitting mid-table and it's all falling apart again, then it might take 2 years to get them back up again. And
if they win the Prem though, Terry, this is the thing.
I don't think they will.
You're talking about the FA Cup, but if they was to win the Prem, then even if but if they did, even then, if he left them in the mud, Arsenal fans will still be buzzing because they've won the Premier League. They've not won it for 2 decades.
And this is the thing, like when Chelsea under Roman had best part of 2 decades at the top, they had about 17 managers, but they had about 20 trophies. So this love for managers staying for more than 3 years has got to stop, man. It's a myth. Managers don't do that anymore.
So I look at it this way. I think there's again, I think it's a happy medium on that. I think you can have a conveyor belt approach with managers if the club has like Bayern Munich, the club has a system. So you're never going to get a Fergie again. But what the modern day Fergie is the sporting director and where the club's run. The club runs the same irrespective of who the head coach is. I think Arsenal have built that foundation now. I think you've got a very good foundation. So then you can now start going through managers. But
I agree.
The managers have to suit what you've built. So I don't think Jose's style of football suits what you've built as a club. Suddenly playing Jose ball when they've been trying to play the way they have been, you need someone if you want someone better than Arteta, it needs to be somebody with a similar ideology who's just better at managing than he is. It's like at your club. You can't go from Pep Guardiola style of football and suddenly bring in an Antonio Conte. I just think the contrast of styles doesn't suit the club plan. So I think you have to get that bit right. Again, that's why Jose and Arsenal wouldn't work.